Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem, and in today's top stories. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praises Israel's security forces for making a record number of arrests and eliminations of terrorists since the beginning of this year. The Arab League announces its decision to reinstate Syria back into the multilateral fora. Russia seeks to bolster cooperation with Turkey as a transit hub for sales of natural gas to third-party countries in the West. The long arm of Israel will find anyone who tries to harm its citizens. This repeated statement by Jerusalem's top political and security leadership once again manifested itself over the weekend amid mounting efforts by Israel's defense establishment to reassert deterrence against terror elements throughout the West Bank districts of Judea, the Jordan Valley, and Samaria in particular. Following a shooting attack on May 2nd in which Palestinian terrorists opened fire toward a civilian vehicle bearing Israeli license plates that resulted in the injury of one Israeli man who miraculously only sustained light wounds from shrapnel, Israel's security agency Shin Bet located the terrorists responsible for this attack and on Saturday morning mounted a joint counter-terror operation in cooperation with the IDF and the Border Police Special Operations Hamas unit. During the course of this operation, an exchange of fire erupted when the terror cell, which included 4 operatives, attempted to flee the scene. As a result, 2 of the operatives were eliminated, while a third sustained wounds before the 4th operative surrendered to the Israeli forces. In contrast, no injuries were thankfully reported among the Israeli troops. In tandem, extensive counter-terror operations were also held throughout Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley, during the course of which another 13 suspected terror operatives were apprehended. It is important to know that during a number of incidents, violent riots erupted to which the Israeli forces responded with crowd dispersal means. Meanwhile, in opening remarks to the weekly cabinet meeting in Jerusalem on Sunday morning, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu commended Israel's security forces for conducting a number of highly complex operations these past several days, which effectively eliminated terrorists who harmed Israeli civilians.
I commend the security forces for eliminating the terrorists that carried out the shooting attack at Avni Hefetz only a few days ago, after eliminating the terrorists who murdered Lucy, Maya, and Rina D. May their memories be for a blessing.
Prime Minister Netanyahu went on to highlight a record number of either apprehended or eliminated terrorists in recent months. Moreover, he also seized the opportunity to reiterate Jerusalem's pledge that anyone utilizing terror against Israelis will undoubtedly pay the ultimate price.
Since the start of the year, we have thwarted and arrested over 110 terrorists, a record number. These counter-terrorist actions entail complex operations, including entering the hearts of cities, while minimizing casualties among our forces and non-combatants, and indeed, 90% of casualties on the Palestinian side are terrorists. I would like to emphasize to the members of the government this is an international achievement. It is doubtful if any other military and security forces would be capable of achieving the same result in combat areas that are saturated with civilians, but our forces are doing so, and they truly deserve all praise and respect. Every terrorist knows that he will pay a price. The long arm of Israel will find anyone who tries to harm our citizens.
Turning to the Egyptian capital, Cairo, where Arab League foreign ministers adopted a decision effectively readmitting Syria into the multilateral forum after more than a decade of suspension, essentially consolidating a regional push to normalize ties with the ruler of Damascus, namely Syrian President Bashar al-Assad.
Arab states have taken a decision to resume the participation of the Syrian Arab Republic's delegation in the meetings of the Arab League and all associated organizations and bodies starting today, May 7th, 2023. I repeat the need for the Syrian government, political forces, national entities, the international community, and concerned states to commit to each other. At a time when Arab states uphold their responsibility to support the political resolution to the crisis given current global stagnation, the Syrian government and the aforementioned parties have the prime responsibility to reach this agreement and to implement related commitments in order for Syria to return to Syrians as a united, stable, and independent country as we all want.
Well, the Arab League's decision to readmit Syria into the multilateral forum effectively allows Damascus to immediately resume its participation. The League's Secretary General Ahmed Abulghait highlighted that its immediate admission into the fold is only a first step of a longer process toward comprehensive normalization.
The return of Syria is the beginning of a movement, not an end. The direction of the resolution to the crisis in Syria will take time for procedures to be implemented, and it will be gradual. The task of this committee is to follow up on those procedures. Also, it is not a decision to resume relationships between Arab states and Syria. This is a sovereign decision left for every country to take on its own. In this decision, we are talking about holding the membership and the formation of a committee to communicate with the Syrian government and regime.
It is important to highlight that rehabilitating Damascus has seemingly frustrated the United States in particular, which seeks to hold the Assad regime responsible for the atrocities committed during the decade-long Syrian civil war.
The U.S. does not support normalization with the Syrian regime, nor do we support other countries, including our partners and allies, partaking in normalization either.
It is important to explain that despite Washington's voiced objection, the majority of Arab states, including the United Arab Emirates and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, have openly pushed for rehabilitating the Assad regime. In contrast, a small number of Arab states, including Qatar in particular, have remained opposed to full normalization with Damascus. Yet while the Biden administration designated Qatar as a major non-NATO ally on March 10th of last year, sources confirmed to TV7 that Doha's objection to Syria's readmission into the Arab League did not stem from its growing interests in the United States. Rather, Qatar, which is known to be a major backer of the Muslim Brotherhood, is said to be aiding its main regional ally Turkey in a separate diplomatic push to normalize relations with Syria via Russian mediation. Nevertheless, while Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu announced late last week that a foreign ministerial to include the top diplomats of Russia, Iran, Syria, and Turkey on May 10th, Russia's foreign ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova stressed that no date has yet been scheduled.
We are preparing the meeting. It is too early to talk about a specific date and venue.
Amid Russia's isolation from the majority of continental Europe in light of sanctions imposed on it due to the war in Ukraine, which have heavily impacted its gas exports, Moscow is seemingly eager on bolstering its ties with the leadership in Ankara, as President Vladimir Putin recently voiced his determination to do so in having Russia increase cooperation with Turkey on distribution of natural gas to third-party countries.
Ну, вопрос создания на территории Турции, как вы говорите...
The issue of establishing a gas hub in Turkey to ensure a reliable, uninterrupted supply of natural gas to European consumers continues to be high on the agenda of Russian-Turkish relations. As for practical negotiations on this issue, they are being conducted through the relevant agencies and companies involved in these infrastructure projects that represent the states concerned. I believe it is up to these agencies and companies to provide substantive comments on this issue.
It is important to know that while Russia essentially seeks Turkey's aid in bypassing Western sanctions on its gas exports, they are both also deepening relations on nuclear energy. On April 27th, Presidents Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Vladimir Putin jointly took part virtually in a ceremony inaugurating Turkey's first nuclear power plant, Akuyu, which was built by Russia's state nuclear energy company, Rosatom. During this ceremony, both leaders witnessed the first loading of nuclear fuel into the first power unit at the site in Turkey's southern province of Mersin. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. Separately, I would like to also encourage you to unceasingly pray for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide, as well as for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Essen wishing you a Shavua Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time.
Alpha.